Punk fashion, a London-based anti-fashion movement with body piercings, torn clothing, and leather, chain, and stud accents, was inspired by the punk rock music genre, which rejected mainstream 1970s rock. The founding editor of Punk magazine described the movement as pure, stripped down, no bullshit rock and roll. A strong do-it-yourself mentality gave rise to the punk rock genre. This mindset was supported by UK Pub Rock, a network of tiny venues that played non-mainstream bands, including local pubs, as well as independent record labels that emerged and established low-cost labels. Punk fashion, which opposed the socio-political climate of early 1970s Britain in response to the pervasive economic crises and societal constraints, mirrored this rebellious attitude towards the stringent demands of mainstream rock. In the UK, punk was defined by a wide range of confrontations: the working class against the bourgeoisie's tyranny, and the younger generation against the standards of the older generations. Fundamentally, it was a left-wing movement that supported individual freedom and rejected authority. Racism, fascism, and other repressive ideologies were opposed by punk artists. With its emphasis on anti-authoritarianism and anti-establishment, the violent and anarchic movement disapproved of the norms enforced by British society. In the UK and most of Europe, the increasing capitalistic culture and high unemployment rates established rigid norms that punk naturally defied. The punk subculture naturally opposes other subcultures, such as those in fashion or music, as well as social systems like class distinction. In the end, the punk movement is defined by both revolt against and reflection of society ills. During the 1970s, a decade marked by working-class strikes, punk contributed to the general continuous degradation in UK society. The genre emerged during a period when the effects of World War II were still being felt by society, and employment rates in certain Western European nations had dropped as low as 28%. The boisterous and combative punk music offered an alternative kind of excitement away from the banality of daily life, rejecting conventional rock, which many felt no longer adequately reflected the realities of existence. The music was often brief, had few chords, and included percussion and distorted guitar sounds. Punk fashion, which included things like clothing from charity stores that had been pulled apart and reassembled into rudimentary shapes with frayed edges and defiled designs, was appropriate for individuals with little money. In general, punk fashion featured a lot of items that previous fashion cultures would have shunned and deemed improper or forbidden, in contrast to the UK fashion scene of the 1970s, which placed a premium on immaculate apparel and fitted lines. Punk wearers frequently embraced ruined clothing that was held together by safety pins and chains. Punk fashion featured intentionally provocative elements, such body piercings and sexual overtones that were out of style at the time. When it came to hair, the focus was on rejecting standard beauty, as seen by punk bands sporting high-spiked Mohican haircuts in shades of pink or green. Many individuals dye their hair jet black or bleached white blonde. The London store Sex, owned by Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren, was a driving force behind the transition of punk into fashion. Punk fashion was characterized by Sex, which sold bondage, fetish clothes, and other punk fashions. Although the punk movement is still highly contentious in various cultures and circumstances, much of it still influences mainstream fashion over 50 years after it began. Punk influences permeate our contemporary fashion choices in a variety of ways, regardless of these settings. Anything unconventional may define punk, from skull decorations to daring fashion choices like neon apparel. Even more frequently, garments with frayed edges or torn pants are recognizable traces of punk. Among the hundreds of influences on contemporary fashion was punk fashion, which was a component of the larger punk movement. Additionally, the ability to resist and reject normativity is one of punk's most significant legacies. The strong leftist ideology at the heart of punk continues to shape society today, enabling fighters for independence and liberation. Even though those who are opposing injustice might not wear the distinctive punk clothing or listen to punk music, punk continues to exist in their struggles. Rebellion, self-expression, and anti-establishment values have long been central to punk as a fashion and music movement. Punk developed into a number of subgenres throughout time, including pop-punk, post-punk, and hardcore, each of which carried on the rebellious spirit in a unique way. Punk fashion has impacted high fashion while continuing to be a representation of counterculture and uniqueness, thanks to influences from icons like Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood. Punk is ultimately an attitude more than merely a style of music or clothing. It's about defying expectations, defending one's convictions, and accepting nonconformity. Punk still influences younger generations with its music and aesthetic.